Hello guys, today I want us to start a new series on large language models, LLMs. If you are in data science or you are in business analytics, and if you're in this world overall, nowadays the topic of town is LLMs, large language models. And I know that several of you already understand that, but I want to actually, explain that in simple words. We are not going to dive into technicalities here, but this will lay a foundation for some of the series that I will talk about, in my future sessions. So, what exactly are large language models? Well, LLMs are basically AI systems, or specifically AI or machine learning algorithms that are trained on a massive amount of test data, and they are trained to actually understand and generate human language, and that actually allows them or enables them to really do tasks like summarization, writing content, and doing several types of things. Okay, and they are called large because they are trained on massive amounts of data, and they have massive amounts of parameters that actually basically support how the model behaves. So parameters, in fact, they have some of them have hundreds of millions and even billions of parameters that allow or enable that model to learn from this massive amount of data set and actually interpret human language, respond to human language, and things like that. Okay, now the technology that actually underlines this methodology that is used to develop large language model is called transformer neural network. And like I said, we are not going to go into the details of this, but the transformer architecture was actually discovered by Google in their popular paper in 2017 called "Attention is All You Need." So if you are into the technical, definitely you can read that paper, "Attention is All You Need" by Google, so you can actually understand that. But this was a massive discovery by researchers in Google, and before that, it was very difficult to actually model natural language or human language. There were other methods that were used before 2017, but those methods were not very effective, and so it was very much a big breakthrough when in 2017 transformer architecture was discovered. But like I said, don't worry about that. The thing you have to worry about is LLMs are large because they are trained on massive amount of test data, and their language, that's the second L, because it's human language, and M because they are machine learning model. So in simple terms, that's LLMs. And since 2017, a lot of companies have used this architecture to develop a lot of LLMs. And these models are very expensive to train because you need to be able to gather massive amount of data. You have to have massive amount of computing. You have to have the talent to be able to actually develop this model. So companies like Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, Facebook, Meta, those are the companies that actually have the resources to train these amounts of models. Okay, since 2017, after Google has published the paper on "Attention is All You Need" and released the transformer neural network architecture, which is the technology underlying large language models, many different companies have used this technology to develop their own version of large language models, including Google itself, right? Companies like OpenAI became very popular because of these large language models. That is the model behind the popular ChatGPT that we all use today. Okay, and so this visualization here is done by David, Tom, and Paul to really illustrate the rise of large language models since the paper "Attention is All You Need" was published in 2017. And so you can see here, GPT-2 was built in 2020, and now we are in 2024. We've seen different versions of GPT 2, 3, 4, and 5 is on the way. And we have several types of large language models built by different companies. So in this visualization, you can see some are owned by Amazon, some are owned by Anthropic, some are owned by OpenAI, some are owned by Meta, and also some of these models are made open source, which means that it's open for the research community to add, to use it for free, to contribute to it. Some of them are closed source, which means that the company that builds them or that built them have full ownership of it and do not make it available for free for people to use, right? So Meta or Facebook is one of the companies that actually open source a lot of their models to make it for free for people to use, because they believe that by making those models available, research and innovation will increase, right? But many of these companies do not make their models available. So take a closer look. You can pause the video, take a closer look at all of these models. You can check them out, you can Google them and read them if you are very interested in the technicalities. But again, this channel is not focused on the technicalities. I really want to really explain to you that, look, LLMs are not magic. We can all understand them. They are just predictive models that are built on massive amounts of data. Okay, so how are large language models built? Just like all machine learning models, it starts with data. So LLMs are built in 6 major steps, okay, that I will describe. These are just my way of simplifying how these models are built. These steps can be many based on different people and how they kind of like synthesize it, but I will give you 6 major steps. Step number 1 is gathering data and pre-processing data. So just like any other machine learning model, LLMs are built by first gathering all sort of test data. In fact, this data can be based on the entire internet. There's rumor that OpenAI and Google's model, large language models are based on a lot of massive amount of internet data, books, blogs, and all of that. Okay, so first is what? Gathering the data and pre-processing, the data and tokenizing the data, because these are all what? Test data. Okay, that's step number 1. Step number 2, because this is language model, step number 2 is to actually create what we call embeddings. Embeddings are actually just representations of text in vector space, so that the computer or the algorithm can use those data. It cannot use the words directly, so you have to embed the words into what we call embeddings or representations of words in a vector space. Okay, again, don't worry too much about the technical, but that's step number 2. Step number 3 is actually training the model. Okay, so training the model, a lot of things go on here, but we wouldn't spend much time diving into training the model. But the number 4 is, now after you finish training, you validate and evaluate the model to make sure that the model is working as planned. And then step number 5 is to fine-tune the model. Okay, make sure that it's solving the problem that you want it to solve. Maybe during that stage you gather additional data, you adapt the model to different use cases. Okay, that's step number 5. And then finally, you package your model and you deploy it. You package it in a way that it can be used either via API or what we call, you serve the model. You make the model ready to be served through either an API into whatever application that you are using this model for. So I'm going to show this here. These are the 6 steps that I've kind of come up with in terms of like how typical LLM models are trained. So step number 1 is collect and pre-process the data, create embeddings, and then number 3, train the base model, validate and evaluate the model, fine-tune the model for your specific use case, and finally package the model and deploy it. Okay, so that's how LLM models are trained. What are some of the major applications of large language models? Oh man, I can talk about this for days, but LLMs are used for a lot of things. Andrew Ng, that's one of the pioneers in AI, popularly says that AI is like an electricity. You can use it for whatever you want because it's a multi-purpose technology that you can use it for your own need. Okay, that's why he says that AI is like electricity. But look, LLMs can be used for so many things, but one popular thing that they are used for is for text generation. Okay, you can ask them to, hey, can you write me a poem for my wife? And LLM will generate this poem for you. Can you write a letter about 1, 2, 3. LLM will generate for you. So they are used for what? Text generation. Another thing that they are used for is summarization. You can have LLM summarize 100-page book for you into one page so that you can actually get what exactly is happening. That's one of the uses that I use a lot. I look at all these many pages that I have to read, and sometimes I just kind of ask, GPT to summarize this for me. And now they have a lot of what we call very wide context window, so you can put in a whole book, okay, and then they can summarize it for you. They are really good at summarizing. Okay, so that's number 2 general thing that LLMs can be used for. Number 3, they are used for conversational systems, which of course I know all of us use the popular ChatGPT. You can have conversations with them. You can ask them, hey, what is happening here? You can even ask them for for customer service queries. For example, you can say, hey, how do I do this? It will give you an answer because it's trained to do that. So you can use LLMs for what? Conversational systems. So far we've talked about 3 things, okay? For basically text generation, we talk about summarization, we talk about conversational system. You can also use them for sentiment analysis, okay? You can analyze sentiment of text, maybe product reviews, even conversations between, customer service reps. You can do all of that, okay? That's number 4. You can also use them for translation. Can you imagine that me, Delali, I'm in China, and I can't speak Chinese language, but I can actually be chatting with my AI or with my LLM in English, and then see the translation in Chinese and show it to the Chinese folks to read. So I will be able to have conversations. So LLMs are also used for what? Translations. And you can use them for many more things like autocomplete. When you are writing messages or emails and you want the system to complete for you, large language models can be used for that. Personally, I have used LLM for a lot of things. Right now, they are like my research consultant. They are like my brainstorming partners. I use them when I'm writing code. I can ask them, hey, can you tell me how the syntax will look like if I'm summarizing this in Python? Boom, I get the code. I ask them, oh, how can I pull data from this table using SQL if I have this and this type of table? Boom, I see a syntax. So I use them for many things. Sometimes I'm writing some proposals and I'll just say, hey GPT, I want to do this and that. Can you give me a 2-page proposal? I can even say, can you give me 500 words, proposal for this? Boom, I get the answer. So look, LLMs can be used for a lot of things, and if you are not leveraging it today, I can assure you, you are not efficient. Please start using LLMs and be efficient. Even though LLMs have so much applications and so much usage, they still have some challenges. So I would like to end my session here today by highlighting some of the challenges so that we are aware and we know how to work around them. Number 1 is what we call LLM monopoly. Okay, just because the technology is new and needs massive amount of data and computing resources and really advanced skill sets to build these models, big companies like Google, OpenAI, Facebook, they actually control how these models are built because they are the only people that have the resources and the know-how to build it. So they kind of monopolize the market. So we are all depending on them, unfortunately, right? So that's a challenge. Okay. Number 2, which is related to the first point, is there is not a lot of transparency in really how these models are built. Many researchers, are exposing some of the not so good things that goes on in training these models, and so there is a little bit of, no transparency in how these models are built because it's built by these companies. They control the narrative around it. So, that's a challenge. Okay. Number 3, that sometimes there is, some bias, there's some discrimination, there is some minority groups, not well represented in the data that is used to train these models, and consequently, the output of these models are kind of biased, especially for this low represented group. So that's also a challenge of these large language models. And because it's also trained on massive amount of data, there are also privacy concerns, because sometimes you may not be asked your permission, or you may not be asked permission before your data is used to train these models. Okay, and sometimes the model unfortunately can also expose your data, because these are predictive models, and you just don't know what they will bring out there, right? So of course, advancements have been done to actually minimize some of these risks, but there are still challenges that I want you to be aware of. There are a lot of ethical and also environmental considerations. The environmental one is very interesting, right? Because many researchers are now saying that, look, all this computing and technology usage and all of these are not good for the environment, because LLMs require massive amount of computing, right? So these are some of the challenges of LLMs. But notwithstanding, we are all working to minimize some of these challenges, and so we can benefit from the good things that LLM can provide. Okay, so today I have explained to you in simple terms what LLMs are. I've talked about how they are built. We've talked about some of their applications, and also we've talked about some of their challenges. I hope this is helpful. I will continue to do additional sessions on LLMs, especially how do you know that the LLM is doing what you want it to do, which is what we call, LLM eval. So I'll do a next session on that one. Thank you. Bye-bye.